Hi, I'm Lee Partridge and welcome back to Col TV. Hope you've been enjoying your summer so far. Commiserations to Tommy Smith and New Zealand for just failing at the final stage to get across the line for the Qatar World Cup against Costa Rica last night, but done so well to get to this stage. Coming up shortly on the show, I'll be speaking to Head of Recruitment, new Head of Recruitment here at Colchester United, Ross Embleton. As you can see, joining me now is Head of Recruitment here at Colchester United, Ross Embleton. Ross, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How did it all come about? Let's start from the beginning. How did you get the call? Where was you at the time with your working role and life at the time?
The call come from Steve Ball. I wouldn't say that we were mates as such, because I think that tends to be like the natural reaction when someone contacts you about a role within football. I'm not a massive networker. I'm not someone that spends hours and hours chasing around trying to stay in with people. I sort of go about my business in my own way. And obviously Steve and I had come up against each other a couple of times whilst I was head coach at Leyton Orient, and Steve obviously in the same role here. And we found that we just had quite a lot in common. Forget football for a minute, just as people. Enjoyed a beer or whatever after a game a few times, and like I say, had common interests. And Steve contacted me to say that they were looking for someone to come in as head of recruitment, and they had a short list of people that they'd like to come in and present. So we had a chat about what that presentation might need to look like, the direction the club were looking to go in. And then I spent the next sort of 4 or 5 days pulling all that together, which then led on to, I'm assuming myself and those other people that were on that shortlist came in to the training ground and presented to Steve, to the manager, some of his coaching staff, and Tony Humes about what I felt recruitment would look like. And it obviously went quite well because I managed to get the job.
And well done on that. And that's interesting you saying that it's like a kind of not a presentation, not a PowerPoint as such, but I guess it's about, you talk about maybe what you've done and how you view your role and what you're actually going to put in to the role as head of recruitment.
Yeah, I think it's important that people are aware. I mean, to a degree, it was pretty much a PowerPoint presentation. And I think sometimes, like, especially in football, how things have changed in recent times, that PowerPoint presentations or presentations in some way, shape or form have become a lot more popular because it's, from a business point of view, it's evidence in front of you. And I think that was a big part of what I use as my presentation. I think if I'd have put my slides up in front of you now, you wouldn't be blown away by them. But ultimately, it's about what you say, it's about what you do, and it's about putting evidence out there to people of what you think you can bring to the role and what you've done in previous experiences, like it would be in any job interview for anybody that's listening. I think that's the important thing, is that football's catching up now, and it has for years been behind other businesses in terms of the way that people go about getting your jobs does go away from a mate picking the phone up towards people that hopefully are best suited for the role.
And I think you've done yourself a disservice there, maybe, in saying about if you put the slides up, because you've worked at places such as Tottenham, Bournemouth, Norwich, Swindon. Can you tell us a bit about those roles and maybe people you worked with?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a career that I'm proud of, started off as a community coach at Leyton Orient when I got released as a young player. Like a lot of other people, lived the dream up until I was 15, 16 and clearly wasn't good enough. So I put a hell of a lot into my coaching, which was at the forefront of always what I did as a young lad leaving college, etc. So yeah, really proud of the career I've had. Obviously stayed at Leyton Orient for a very, very long period of time and had numerous roles at the club, mainly within the academy, before leaving and going on to Tottenham. So again, an academy role there with a little bit of a different structure. It wasn't necessarily about coaching, it was about how I brought in young players to the club. So loosely, I suppose, without it being a titled recruitment role, it was about attracting people, parents, top young players across London and the surrounding areas into Tottenham's academy at a time. A flourishing academy with players now that have gone on to play for the first team and go on into international football, players like Harry Kane and people like that I was able to live and see develop. I suppose with a number of them not quite knowing where they were going to get to, but a real opportunity to see what top top football looks like.
And of course, you spent quite a long time at Leighton Orient in various different roles. And also, you mentioned about young players at Tottenham and bringing them through. And the academy here is a big part of the club. And we've seen in recent years that the players are coming through the academy. Is that also something that excites you about being involved with, a club, in this league that has such an emphasis on the academy players?
100%. I think, like I say, passionate there, not just about what I did at Leighton Orient, but like I say, Tottenham, Bournemouth, all clubs where I worked with in the academy. So the development of young players, development of young coaches, because I think that's also important and part of the process as well, is that you're developing the people within your club to make sure that you get those succession paths of players coming through into the team. So I think by the time I left Leighton Orient, when I went back the second time, and leaving as head coach, a third of our squad was from our academy, as well as loan players as well, because I think being a League Two club these days, you have to be in the loan market, especially with the clubs that are location-wise not too far away from us. We've got some top football clubs in not necessarily in the area, but not too far away, where it helps you manage your budget by bringing in those young players. So collectively, it's fantastic to see the succession of players coming through, which this club's got a rich history and a real focus on doing. So as well as a great opportunity for me in terms of the recruitment role, I think in terms of what the club's about, it was a real attraction for me as well.
And you mentioned about recruitment. So how would that work? How does that work now? Because it's changed a lot over the years, as many of us know. Whereas it used to be a manager, right? That's a player I want. That's a player I don't want. Now there's more to it. Now it's slightly more complex. Do you speak to Wayne or Steve, and maybe you try and identify players you'll go and what? How does that work?
I mean, there'll obviously be a plan in place here already. There'll be targets already that Wayne and Steve and the people in the recruitment team, or with an eye on recruitment, would have identified already. And part of my job will be to support, hopefully trying to get those players that are at the top of the list to bring in over the summer and help that happen. But I think there's a tendency sometimes, I think now, when you look at clubs at our level, and people say, they've got a director of football, what do you need a director of football, or what do you need a head of recruitment for? Leave it to the manager. But there's not enough hours in the day. There's not enough hours in the day for Wayne to go about his job, foot to the floor, solely focused on the team and individual players within his squad and that responsibility, and then also do all of the recruitment as well. I think the tradition of a manager has really changed. So it's about having a plan and a process in place where we all contribute. The sole focus for my role will be to go out and identify players, but not just this is player A is the best player that we can go and get. It's how are they going to fit into the system that Wayne Brown wants? How are we going to bring this player in, or is this player going to be suitable for Colchester United, and not just the best player that's out there? I think it's about having a plan in place to make sure that we're communicating. We have regular meetings. We have our team of scouts and people, including myself, out there identifying the best players, but the best players for Colchester.
So when you say the best players for Colchester, you're talking about personality as well as just ability then, I guess.
Yeah, and that's a big part of what we'll have to do as a team of people, and certainly from my perspective, that's already started. Like I say, there's names and players on lists at the moment that it's about digging around and finding out, what's he like as a lad? What's he like in terms of his work ethic in training? What's he like social media wise? Is he the right type of character to come in and fit into the group? Because sometimes it's not necessarily about just signing the best player to go out there on a Saturday. If he's disruptive or doesn't live his life properly, if he's not professional, we want people with a little bit more of a package that are going to come in and be able to fit into the group, because that's a massive part of managing day to day.
And in your time of working in football and at this level and coaching and recruitment, has that got a lot tougher to get those right players? You mentioned about social media, because that can have an impact now. Is it becoming more difficult? Plus, the National League, some of the budgets that the teams have in there, we know is bigger than it's ever been before, and they're all knocking on the door. And the ones that come in sometimes have got massive budgets, big budgets, and then go on, like we've seen Forest Green do recently. So that even in the non-league now, they're able to sign big players on sort of big money, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably almost unjustified to class it as non-league now, the National League, because you're getting players dropping out of League One and going and playing in the National League, which spending time in that league 3-4 years ago, wasn't even the case then, you know. So it's drastically changed in terms of the scale of the club and the money that's at that level. And I think, to answer your question, I wouldn't say it's probably doing disrespect to people that worked in the game years ago to say that it's easier or harder now. I just think it's a lot more intricate because there's a lot more thought that needs to go into it. So there's more planning, there's more time that needs to be spent in making sure you get the right product, the right outcome at the end of it, because there is so much riding on it. It's it's salaries, it's money that's being spent on these people, it's time and effort, and ultimately, when you look at it from managers and coaches' perspective, it's career defining at times. Recruitment, it's about making the right decisions to give yourself the opportunity and the platform to be successful, both as a club and like I say, from the management team as well.
And it's all happened quite quickly. So, who have you met and how have you settled in? Final question to you. And are you looking forward to the challenge that's ahead? Same as any challenge in football across the world. Everything's a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. And then I think the important thing is as well is it's not just in football. There'll be people watching this now that don't spend day-to-day working in a football environment. Whatever you do, life's a challenge, isn't it? And going to work's always a different challenge, and I am really excited and passionate about the role and the opportunity to work at this football club. Obviously, in planning, done a lot of research and had a lot of background knowledge. Been to a number of games this season here, so I know what the place has got to offer. Great stadium, fantastic training ground. So really excited about coming to work here. In terms of meeting people, not a lot. Really strange time in terms of when the season ended. Obviously the decision that was made in terms of where the manager was and the decision that was made to give him the job full time. People have had their holidays, so it's been a real stop-start period for me, albeit it hasn't been very long so far. So it's been about making the most of the contact time that I have had when people have been around. Email, WhatsApp groups that have been flying around and started. So just trying to make sure that we're getting the most amount of communication. And because I'm so excited about the role, try to hit the ground running and make sure this is a successful window that gives us a platform to have a good season.
Look, thanks for coming in, joining us, Ross. Good luck with everything here while you're here with us at Colchester United, and we look forward to seeing what happens over the summer.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Well, that's about it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching, and keep your eyes peeled. We'll be back over the summer with more news as it happens. Until then, have a great summer, and it's goodbye for now.